Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up, the devastating young and restless twist that's set to leave. The Newman family. Heartbroken and in shock. The Newman family just celebrated their matriarch, Nikki Newman, and the party went off brilliantly. There's even hope on the horizon that Victor might accept Claire and Kyle's relationship as a final gift to his wife. But what's coming will cast a dark shadow over all of this. And for once, we're not talking about anything related to Aristotle Dumas. This has absolutely nothing to do with him, aside from a few tense conversations and Kyle's bizarro offer to Victor to leave the town and pay him $5 million smackaroos if he hurts Claire. Nikki's birthday went off without a hitch. The only upsetting thing to occur was when Cole suffered another coughing fit and some wooziness whilst on the dance floor with Victoria. Cole's been insisting that he's on the mend from his mystery ailment, but our first clue that might not be the case came when he got dizzy upon standing up at Crimson Lights last week. We should have known something was coming then, when he turned up late to the birthday bash and blamed it on some complications related to this bug he's been battling. Before we knew it, Cole had suffered a setback, and Victoria was hollering for someone to call 911. In typical stubborn male soap character fashion, Cole once again refused to let Victoria call for help and nixed the notion of going to the hospital. Thankfully, he allowed himself to be dragged up to a suite, otherwise he might have infected the whole party, and we'd be looking at an entirely different type of storyline. We're not gonna lie. We marked Cole for death when he first started, coughing after his return from the business trip weeks ago, but he's since seemed to rally, and it appeared as though the plot point would turn out to be, well, pointless. But much like his nagging cough and shortness of breath, this plot is hanging on, and it's Cole's aforementioned stubbornness that has us very concerned. That's where the twist comes in. After Cole left the birthday party, Victor worried that he had the signs of pneumonia. If that's true, Cole's continued refusal to see a doctor or go back to the hospital could cause something that would otherwise be treatable to turn deadly. Alternatively, Cole could have something far more serious that's masquerading as pneumonia, like lung cancer. Delaying treatment could prove to be the difference between life and death for Victoria's man. It's also possible that Cole was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer the first time he went to the hospital and decided to keep the terrible news to himself so as not to burden Victoria and Claire. He was pretty cagey about his test results. If you don't think this can happen on soaps, just take a look at Bold and Beautiful's Liam, who didn't want anyone to know he had an inoperable brain mass. If that's the case, it explains why Cole is adamant about Victoria not taking him to the hospital. He doesn't want her to discover the truth, and he already knows there's nothing that can be done. Either way, it's not looking good for Cole Howard, and the Newman clan, believing he's been battling a common cold, will not only be heartbroken but utterly shocked to lose him so unexpectedly. Newman Enterprises bustled with the usual efficiency, assistants darting from office to office, boardroom meetings brimming with power plays, and Victor Newman looming over the empire he built like a watchful titan. But beneath the polished surface, something far more destructive was brewing, something that would shatter the very foundation of the Newman legacy. It began with a single call. Victoria Newman, poised as ever, was wrapping up a quarterly strategy session when her assistant stepped in. The look on the woman's face said, "Everything. There's something you need to hear. It's urgent." Victoria sighed, expecting another PR scandal or a market dip. Instead, a trembling voice echoed through the speakerphone. "This is Dr. Lena Rawlings from Genoa City Memorial. We've just received the results of your father's full-body scan. I'd prefer to deliver this news in person." Secrets in the blood. Victor Newman prided himself on invincibility. He had bested rivals, conquered empires, and cheated death more times than anyone could count. But when Dr. Rawlings sat him down, flanked by Nikki, Victoria, and Nick, the unshakable Titan was brought to his knees. "You have a rare degenerative neurological condition," she said softly. "Progressive, incurable, and it's already begun to affect your motor skills and cognitive responses." Nikki clutched his hand, eyes brimming. Nick stood frozen. Victoria inhaled sharply, maintaining her facade for her siblings' sake. Victor looked from one face to another. "How long?" Dr. Rawlings hesitated. "Months, maybe a year. It will be subtle at first. Memory lapses, confusion. But eventually it will take everything. A will that changes." Everything shocked into silence, the Newman children barely spoke for days. Nikki, ever the devoted matriarch, tried to maintain normalcy. But Victor had one mission: rewriting his will. "Everything will change," he said, to Michael Baldwin, who now handled his estate planning. "This isn't about business, this is about truth." Victoria, long the heir apparent, was stunned when she received the revised documents, and her share was significantly reduced. Instead, Victor had bequeathed the majority of the company to Adam. "Are you kidding me?" Victoria erupted. "He's betrayed you more times than I can count. He's the one who has nothing left to lose," Victor said, voice weak but firm. "And he's the one I failed the most." The sins of the father word spread fast through Genoa City. Adam Newman was just as shocked as anyone. Years of resentment, exile, even near murder. And now his father had handed him the kingdom on a silver platter. Sally Spectra watched him pace the penthouse. "You should be happy. This is everything you wanted." "It's everything I thought I wanted," Adam replied. "But not like this. Not when he's dying." Meanwhile, Victor began slipping, confusing names, forgetting conversations. A once commanding presence now flickered like a candle in a storm. One night, he mistook Abby for Victoria, then shouted at her for running off with Billy again. It took Nikki an hour to calm him down. "I don't know how much longer I can pretend he's okay," she whispered to Nick. The letter days later, Victoria received a package hand-delivered to her office. Inside was a sealed letter in her father's handwriting, labeled, "To be opened only when I forget who you are." Heart hammering, she slid it into her drawer, unread. But when she visited him that evening, Victor looked at her blankly. "Can I help you?" he asked, confused. Her hands trembled. "It's me, Victoria, your daughter." He furrowed his brow, then smiled faintly. "Of course. Vicky, always working, just like your mother, when he fell asleep." She opened the letter on the patio. "My dearest Victoria, if you're reading this, it means I no longer recognize the daughter who has stood by me through everything. I know you're angry about the will, but I need you to know this isn't about favoritism. This is about balance. I gave you everything once. Now I ask you to give something back. Your grace, your forgiveness, your strength to keep this family together when I can no longer do it myself. With eternal love, Dad." Tears rolled down her cheeks as the letter slipped from her fingers. Implosion, the will reading, moved up in anticipation of Victor's rapid decline, was held at the ranch. Nikki sat close to her husband, who stared blankly ahead, no longer fully present. Victoria glared at Adam. Nick sat in brooding silence. Michael read aloud. "To my wife, Nikki, the ranch and personal assets. To Nick, a 20% share of the Newman legacy. To Victoria, 30%, and to Adam, full operational control." The room exploded. "You betrayed me," Victoria seethed at her brother. "You knew!" "I didn't ask for this," Adam snapped. "I've earned this company. And I've earned nothing but exile and blame." Victor stirred slightly. Enough. It was the last time he would speak clearly. A final goodbye. Days later, Victor collapsed in the greenhouse. Nikki called for help, but by the time EMTs arrived, he was barely breathing. In the hospital, the Newman family gathered for one final vigil. Faith, Noah, Summer, even Noah's child from London flew in. The waiting room overflowed with Newman blood and regrets. Nikki sat at his bedside, whispering their favorite memories. Victoria placed the letter he had written her beneath his hand. Nick kissed his forehead. Adam lingered in the doorway, guilt flooding every inch of his soul. When the monitors flatlined, the room plunged into silence. Victor Newman was gone. Aftermath. The funeral was fit for a king. Press from around the world covered it like a state affair. But inside the Newman family, grief turned quickly to war. Victoria moved to challenge the will. Nick sided with her. Adam, stunned by his father's final decision, offered to step down, but the board wouldn't hear of it. The will was airtight. Victor's last wish, honored. "I didn't ask for this," Adam said again. "But if I walk away, Newman falls into chaos." "And if you stay," Victoria said coldly, "then it already has." A twist from the grave. Just when the dust began to settle, a mysterious woman arrived in Genoa City. Her name? Angela Harland. She claimed to be the child of Victor's late rival and secret lover, a woman named Celeste Harland, whom Victor had known during a business trip in the late 80s. And she had proof, DNA, letters, and most damning of all, a codicil to the will, hidden in a safe deposit box, naming her as another Newman heir. Nikki was blinds. But the board wouldn't hear of it. The will was airtight. Victor's last wish honored. "I didn't ask for this," Adam said again, "but if I walk away, Newman falls into chaos." "And if you stay," Victoria said coldly, "then it already has." A twist from the grave just when the dust began to settle. A mysterious woman arrived in Genoa City. Her name? Angela Harland. She claimed to be the child of Victor's late rival and secret lover, a woman named Celeste Harland, whom Victor had known during a business trip in the late 80s. And she had proof, DNA, letters, and most damning of all, a codicil to the will hidden in a safe deposit box, naming her as another Newman heir. Nikki was blindsided. "Victor never told me." "Because he didn't know," Angela said calmly. "But the law doesn't care about ignorance. The family fractured again. Another sibling, another rival, another reason to fight." Legacy rewritten. As legal battles loomed and press coverage reached a frenzy, the Newman siblings stood divided. Nick withdrew from the company entirely, opening a non-profit in Victor's name. Victoria pushed harder than ever to unseat Adam. Adam began forming a tense alliance with Angela, who, despite being the outsider, seemed genuinely interested in protecting Victor's legacy. And Nikki? She retreated into grief, unsure how to go on without the man who had been her compass, her greatest love and her greatest heartbreak. One night, she walked through the ranch alone and found a journal Victor had been keeping during his final lucid weeks. The last entry read, "Family is war, but it is also home. If they destroy each other after I'm gone, then I've built nothing at all." Out of the ashes months later, the company survived, battered, but still standing. Victoria, Adam, and Angela formed a fragile triad of leadership. There were arguments, betrayals, and uneasy truces, but there were also moments of collaboration, of hope. One Christmas Eve, the Newman family gathered at the ranch. Nikki lit the fire. Faith played piano. And on the mantel stood a photo of Victor Newman, arms crossed, smirk intact, forever in command. They weren't whole. They weren't healed, but they were together. For now. And maybe, just maybe, that was what Victor wanted all along.